and how that frontier keeps pushing forward.
I mean, I guess that there is a difference there between being cyborgs, which I guess many people around the world right now are, billions maybe. I don't know. How many people have cosmetic surgery around the world? Do you know?
It's not a $40 billion market internationally.
Fair enough.
I have a bunch of these stats off the back of my hand at the moment.
One of the off the back of your hand, but that's not actually the question I asked. But it's good enough. It's good enough. Metrics, man, metrics. So one of the people who introduced me to this at the same CCC conference was Queen Norton, who is a journalist in cybersecurity and technology, and she showed me what I guess is now, like, people will jump in a second and tell me I'm wrong, of course, the basics of starting with this, which is embedding a magnet in your finger so you can get a sense and a feeling of magnetic fields around you. The possibilities are limitless, honestly, and it excites me to know there are people out there who have been doing this forever. I don't remember if it was Meredith or not, we'll find out in a minute, but somebody at the same conference, they were talking about DNA and how it takes a $10,000 lab to be able to extract DNA, and I think it was Meredith. But again, don't catch me on this. We just showed on stage. Oh, doggy in the background.
Yes. This is Sapo.
This is Sapo. She just on the spot in front of everybody extracted DNA, just to show things are possible. So it's not just about the human body; it's about hacking, which is a concept by itself. So with that, I would like to say hello to Najla and to thank her for helping us organize the show today. How are you doing today, Najla?
Hi, Gadi. Hi, Karen. I am doing well. How are you all today?
Doing great. Your background is so appropriate for the topic of the show.
Nice. Good.
Yeah. So when Carl approached you, I'm not sure what he pitched, but I kind of wondered what came to your mind, what this show should be about. Because I know you and the DEFCON Biohacking Village, all of that stuff, but please go on.
Well, I mean, it's not just the human body we're talking about here. It's everything. Like, it's not just, we're talking human body, we're talking about medical devices, everything that we as a people use, we're hacking it biologically. So there's different aspects of it. And when he approached me, I was like, okay, well, this is something I talk about and I'm very familiar with, and I, work alongside the Biohacking Village. So I was like, yeah, no problem. Let's do this. And so we just went from there, and we're going to have a good show. We got some questions and we're going to get straight to it.
All right. So let's get started. We have two more panelists here who will join us in a second and say hello. And I guess I'll just hand it over to you so you can talk with Nina and Meredith.
I sure will. So I will introduce myself briefly. I'm Najla Lindsay. I am a forensic scientist with a background in forensic science. I've been working in clinical and forensic toxicology for almost 10 years. So basically, think like drug testing is what I mostly do. And I happened to learn about Biohacking Village a couple of years ago in 2019. I'm often on Twitter, tweeting away, sharing my thoughts about things. And I had never been to DEFCON, and I was like, it would be really nice to go. So I got the opportunity. I got a scholarship to go to DEFCON, and I also got the same opportunity to speak at the Biohacking Village. And I was just forever, eternally grateful, and still am. And so now, as I do, volunteer and give back to the Biohacking Village, it's just so much stuff that I don't even know as well as myself that I am just learning from the community in general. And so today we have Nina, who is
hold on. I gotta say, it's my job as host. I let you introduce yourself. I should have done that because you're being very much humble, and you shouldn't be. I mean, the DFIR stuff, the ICS and OT security stuff, all the conferences you spoke in, how you even talk about yourself as somebody who is aiming to be a subject matter expert in your area, when you effectively are, it's just a little bit of more credit for you before we introduce everybody else.
Yeah, so I've my forensic background, so I'm trained in all things forensics, crime scene, ballistics, things like that. But we didn't have digital forensics at the time. It wasn't like a degree program, a concentration. So I am doing that and taking what I've learned in my, normal forensic background and applying it to digital forensics. And I recently learned about critical infrastructures and ICS and SCADA and things like that. So that's where my focus will be as I move forward here in my career and make my transition successfully into, biohacking and cybersecurity in general. So I do my best to, share what I know and like research and find out things. So it takes a while, but it's definitely worth it in the end. And the community, I find from my perspective, is very, very interesting and very, very welcoming. They'll send resources, they'll help out, they'll tell you what's going on. And it's so much to learn. So I'm very grateful for it. And I'm very grateful to be here as well. So thank you for having me. But I want to welcome Nina Alli, and I want to welcome Meredith Patterson here as the two panelists that we'll be speaking with. How are you two doing today?
I'm going to go with superb. Hi.
Hello. Happy Saturday.
I'm doing all right. It's nighttime in Belgium. But
oh, okay. I didn't even realize that it was so. I didn't realize you were in Belgium, but that would make sense.
I'm in Brussels.
Okay.
It'll be 10 years this spring, actually.
Nice. So would you all, I'll start with Meredith, would you give a brief background about yourself to the audience here?
All right. Well, my academic background is kind of all over the place. My degrees are actually in linguistics. And my first real touch with the biology world was an internship that I had while I was working on the PhD in computer science that I never finished. I was a bioinformatics intern at Integrated DNA Technologies, and Gadi, just to clarify, that was actually the incident where I just busted out and separated, lysed and separated DNA on stage. That was at CodeCon in 2005. IDT flew me out there.
I confused it, but it was still you, so.
I mean, the story has probably gotten around. But yeah, it was great. Used a salad spinner as a centrifuge.
Okay. Isn't a salad spinner at the end of the day a centrifuge?
It is a centrifuge. That's exactly what I'm saying. And really,
hold on, I'll call the Iranians for the nuclear program for a second here.
Yeah, I see you.
I mean, some centrifuges are fancier than others, but yeah, that was really my introduction to bioinformatics. And then while I was living in the Bay Area, I was pretty heavily involved in the early days of the synthetic biology biohacker scene. There's kind of a distinction between that and the grinder scene, which is more about the installing technology in one's body. And there's no prejudice, right? I've got plenty of friends who have an RFID in their fingertip or whatever, and who actually use it as to unlock the doors to their house or whatever. But I haven't gone that far. The closest I am to a cyborg at this point is that I have an IUD, and I have, off and on for quite some time. And, I think that's something that people kind of, fail to recognize, right? Because they think, oh, it's a medical technology, but it's an implanted device that prevents pregnancy incredibly reliably. I think that's pretty cyborg. My parents have both had lens replacements in their eyes. That's pretty cyborg.
Meredith, you have no idea. IUDs and LASIK and where you categorize them was two of the questions I was going to ask you.
Oh, not even LASIK. They had their whole straight up lens.
Yeah.
And my dad has bad astigmatism and nearsightedness like I do. I can't I talked to my ophthalmologist last visit about is this going to be an option for me? And they were like, let's talk about it your next visit in 2 years. So fingers crossed.
Nice. And lovely Nina, let's hear it.
I like the intro of let's hear it. So my introduction to life, 16 years in the New York City hospital system, working on electronic medical records and eventually the IoT connected medical devices. And I worked primarily in surgical oncology. So it was 13 different EMRs in one place and putting them all together so that there was one communication for the physicians to do the right things for the patient at the right time for the right surgery. EMRs are electronic medical records. Yes, thank you, because I tend to think everybody knows what's in my head. I do that. So what else have I done? I worked on a microfluidics project for sexually transmitted infections, and that did not go anywhere because the government was like, oh, that's cool, but we need proof of concept and data. And I was like, we're here, guys. I need your money for that. And didn't do anything with it. So end of that is biohacking takes on different forms. There was another comment here about, is it medicine or isn't it medicine? I think we're at the point in life where we recognize that garage science, and just as an FYI, in the United States, garage science has been signed into law by President Obama, saying we need to look at it and get into it and do the things and bring it into the government and bring it into the manufacturing side and actually do something with it. So that's something that I, at the Biohacking Village, we try to empower the manufacturers, the big pharma medical device manufacturers, to do with the garage science, with the biohackers, biotech, biosec, DIY bio technology folks. Garage science. So what is garage science? It's literally what I was doing with the microfluidics project. I was in a lab that was not a BSL level, so biosafety level 0, we'll say for right now. But as is all garage science, and all the good things come out of garages, right? So we were building out a plastic piece of nothingness that did like nanoscale cellular apparatus thing, where we put urine, saliva, all of the body liquids, let's be very clear, right? Liquid tissue in there, and went through different parsings to determine if the person had an STD, an STI. Garage science is those places where a lot of the biomanufacturers get their ideas and start their sciences from. It's people that are from very different backgrounds coming together and learning the things that they have to learn to make whatever it is work.
And in the US, that's actually something you can do. Like, I really have not been actively involved in anything biohacking related since I moved to Europe, just because, you know, there is that requirement that you have a BSL-1 lab minimum. And the catch is that basically none of the countries have a process set up for just a regular individual to, you know, to go through that process. You know, they have a process for universities, they have a process for companies. I know of one guy in Ireland who has, you know, who managed to go through it as an individual. And, you know, like there's a couple places in France and elsewhere that have, you know, that have managed to get their workspaces certified, you know, as organizations. But it really clamps down on the ability for actual individuals in their garage to experiment.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, in some cases, like the folks who do this in the Bay Area, like it's actually their day job also. But you know, being able to come home and work on something, even though it's fully acknowledged you have all the skills to do this, you know, and somebody is paying you to do it during the day, like just the ability to come home and you know, continue to use those skills is, you know, kind of rare.
So Najla, what have we got? What are we doing today?
We got a lot. We got some questions, and I think that it's very important, especially with, you know, the way the world is right now. So my very, very first question is, you know, we've been in a pandemic for the past year, right? So how has that changed for you personally, and how has that perspective changed? How has your perspective on it changed for biohacking? Nina, I'll let you go first.
0% prep time. I like it. How has my perspective changed? Or
if it hasn't, that's fine too.
No. So right before DEFCON last year, I had COVID and I was exhausted all the time. And I got through it right before DEFCON started. And at the time I lived in a loft and I had 16 stairs. And I remember going up the stairs one of the days of DEFCON and I was like, I'm exhausted. I need a nap. I don't care what happens today. I need to go to sleep. But I think for me, it's imparting a little more patience and kindness on people. I've done it before. Like, I don't know what's going on in your life, but I also know that I don't need to be a further impediment in your life. And it's that we have to help each other more than we already were. We were a great community before. And I think with everything that's gone on, we've become better at understanding each other and having the conversations. The humanity came back a little bit more in my eyes.
Agreed. Meredith?
My observation is more political. I mean, we've seen that with a committed effort, the red tape that it normally takes to get it to roll a vaccine out has been sliced through in under a year in both the US and Europe, and in quite a few other countries as well. And that's kind of impressive, particularly given how much red tape there is over here. We're still lagging behind the US in terms of distribution. And I don't have any really great observations about that, but it's nice to see that the bureaucracy can do its job without without slowing things down too much.
And that's totally understandable. I think, depending on where you are in the world, you're seeing differences. And I think that, as we move forward, what would you say are your top two concerns with, the new biomedical technologies and devices with the vaccine rollout policies? There's a lot at stake here and there's a lot at play here. You have policies changing, by the minute sometimes, and sometimes by the second. One policy is in effect one day, the next day it's a quick policy change. So what are you seeing in Europe? Like, what are you seeing in Belgium? Like, how's that over there as far as, the concerns that you're seeing? And you can give more than two if you
we've been under curfew since October of last year. And that got lifted a little bit before December, and then it clamped back down again. And it's still going on, and it's different in different regions of the country, which, this is Belgium we're talking about. That is actually potential constitutional crisis level issue. If, Brussels, this region, has to stay indoors from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., but the rest of the country can stay out from midnight to 5.
So it's definitely differences amongst the countries and the different areas. The states are the same way. Like, I really think it's just states for themselves at this point. Like, a lot of it I'm seeing is, guidelines and not mandatory. So they're changing what they're saying. And it's been a quite crap show, honestly. Nina?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to hear from the public health from the public health folks on the front lines administering vaccines. What are they learning?
Well, I'll tell you
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I work in a lab that we were heavy on COVID testing I think from maybe August and we just let up maybe February. So I think we were running 300 samples a day. And that's a lot for a small independent laboratory. And so a lot of people were coming to us because we were turning results around within 12 hours. We would have your results back out. Even though, there was a price to it. And then if your insurance reimbursed you, then fine. Or, if they reimbursed us, fine. It's still covered. But you had to pay up front. But now I think with the vaccine rollout, it's a lot less. We're getting maybe a third of what we were getting before. So I think that people are definitely taking the time to go and get that vaccine. Nina?
I have 3 thoughts. They're a little political, right? Bringing manufacturing back to the US, because 80 to 90% of all of our medical pharmaceuticals devices are made out of this country. So there's legislature coming down saying we need to bring that back. And they're looking at Puerto Rico to do this. And my family is from Puerto Rico. So I have a lot of concerns about that. And one of them is, what are you going to do with the EPA laws? You can't just make things and throw all the things into the water and break the mountains, et cetera. And I am a big proponent of discussing decision failure. I want to know what the decision tree was. I want to understand everything you went through so that I know that your decision was not made lightly. And the other thing is funding of ideas. There were so many ideas that came down at the start of the pandemic, middle of the pandemic. And where did funding go? How are things funded? What are the results, et cetera, things like that.
So what do you think is new in the biohacking, community? What would you say is new, and do you see it taking off like exponentially, or what are you seeing in biohacking?
Yeah, I think this pandemic has shown everyone that medicine is not just medicine. Mm-hmm. Even the way that we look at medicine, you go to your primary care physician and they're like, cool, you have something, I don't know what it is. Go to the infectious disease doctor. Oh, you're also a woman. Go to the gynecologist. We've siloed everything, and we've also siloed IT and information technology and information security in medicine. So we need to start putting everything together so that we can have that commonality and discussion of everything that's going on, bringing in all of the cybersecurity experts from the outside in to help fortify that, rather than just, we know everything, we're going to figure it out. ICS is involved, like you said, ICS is involved. Logging devices, humans are at the beginning and end of this. We need to take that into account when we are making things, including decisions.
Big communication. I think communication is at the core of that. Instead of, being scared to share, your bad things that have happened and just displaying the good, you're not going to get anywhere, because sometimes people will keep running the same race. And instead of just communicating within your same industry and across companies and saying, hey, we've had this issue and we see that you're having this issue, it hasn't been happening. So I'm looking forward to more collaborative efforts as well. Meredith?
Did y'all see that article a week or two ago about the cousins who own the company that produces like 90% of the nose swabs that are used for COVID tests? Like Puritan Medical Products. I think they're in like Maine or something.
I think I did.
Yeah, like these two guys can't stand each other. But the US government basically had to loan them a ton of money to be able to scale up their process for making nose swabs, because they were the only people that like had the technology for it. Yeah.
I did see this. I saw this story and I couldn't help but think that like this is where generational feuds come from, and like we're just creating one over nose swabs, and I like I can't wait for where this will be in like 5 years.
Well, I mean, few family-owned companies make it to the third generation precisely because once you get to like cousins rather than brothers, it's a lot easier for people to get into conflict, which seems to be what's happened here. But it has implications for like U.S. resilience.
Fair. So I know Gadi mentioned.
So cotton
about
swabs
chips.
are. Sorry about that. I just wanted to understand. Are you saying that cotton swabs are critical infrastructure?
Well, at this point, the nasal swabs they're not cotton swabs. They're electrostatically flocked using some trade secret process.
I mean, like
the things they stick up your nose when they're testing you for COVID.
It's the worst thing ever.
I knew we didn't have enough.
Do not recommend. Do not recommend.
Bad, but I had to have a fiber optic camera up my nose when I had my tonsils out. I mean, I guess that's another.
Moving on very quickly from that. So I do know that me personally,
why would we move on from uncomfortable medical things?
We are moving on from that. It reminds me of the startup when. What's the name of this fish that everybody fears, like the huge teeth and the light hair?
I'm squeaked out. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah. So my co-founder Irene decided to make that our mascot, and I was like, nope, not gonna happen. Almost quit.
Anglerfish. Yes.
Anglerfish. Oh my god, that's horrible. Anyway, but the thing is, you are experts and you do such cool stuff every day, and I'm like, what is this thing that you're doing? Why are you doing it? Why is it so cool?
It's cool. It's not even that it's cool. It's important. It's important work, whether we like it or not. And sometimes
what is this work if it's so important?
It's advancing our everyday life. It's not just about, advancing medicine. It's about advancing every aspect of our life. everything just touches our life, whether we realize it and how minuscule we make it or how large we make it. Everything touches our life. So it's not just about, okay, what's the new hot technology? No, you have to think about second and third order consequences of what things will do as far as this work. So yes, it can be frustrating, and yes, you may not necessarily agree with it and people are going to challenge you, but what's the fun in that if people aren't challenging you and not agreeing with it? You gotta make it somehow, some way.
You know, you've been asking. Oh,
I was just gonna say, could I actually like rephrase it slightly? Because this is something that I've been wondering is sort of, what would you say like the parameters of biohacking are versus a couple of like adjacent things like medical research, or, you know, like what makes it different in some ways from medical research? Like what sort of what's
adjacency is kind of the wrong relationship to think about here, right? I mean, there's a Venn diagram here. Like, you know, there's.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Meredith.
Like, I'm gonna take a grinder position, which isn't usually mine, right? The body modification field, you know, has people in it who have developed their skills, you know, in, you know, not in an academic way, but they have through practice, and, you know, they've pioneered techniques, you know, for things like implants. And you can't really differentiate between, you know, those skills and, like, you know, a surgeon who's implanting a subdermal device for some other reason. Apart from, you know, how did they learn them?
Can I expand on that?
Go ahead, expand.
That's one of my favorite concepts to talk about with people. So I have 3 implants, and I tell that to everybody. You need so much more knowledge rather than just, I'm just going to stick my pen up into my arm and see what happens. You have to have biocompatible plastics or glass or whatever thing it is, because it's not like you're going to shove your iPhone into your arm just to see what happens. You need it to be a thing. Going to your question, is it medicine or is it not? Everything is connected to your health. At least for me, it is, right? If you do not feel well, you're not going to work. If you don't work, you're not having an income. Then you don't have healthcare. Or at least in this country, it's such a vicious cycle. Whereas in other countries, they're better. They understand that you need healthcare to have your job, for the income, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Medicine matters. The way that it's given to people, I have a lot of issues with, because it's so imperfect, and if you don't have it, it's so costly. When there's so many different ways to have it and get it that are more efficient, effective, et cetera. Especially now with digital medicine coming down from the pandemic, everybody has the opportunity to work from home and get medicine from home simultaneously. But again, all of those things were made so fast and so quickly that security parameters were not embedded directly into that. So now it's a catch-up game.
Oh yeah, totally. I also work on EMRs. We can suddenly practice wherever we want.
Right.
It's new.
The telehealth industry is like booming right now, and it's just like security wasn't like thought about in there at all, and now it's like slowly coming to the forefront. So with that, and we're talking about all of this, and now everyone has access. Is there any bias in all of this? And if there is, where do you think it comes from? Where does it manifest from? Go ahead, Nina. I see you. I'm gonna high five you there.
So I'm from New York City. Everybody thinks that there's no issues in New York City because there's so much Wi-Fi and all these other things, and rural have a lot of issues, but it's the same issue. It's the same internet issue, because one, you're in a high rise with stacked 60 million other people, and then over here you have 60,000 miles and one person per however many miles. So that's one of the failures of telehealth. The other failure of telehealth is they haven't changed the parameters on the back end for CMS, Centers of Medicare and Medicaid and Medicare Services, which is the main payer in the United States. they still charge for in-person visits. I think it's $60.32, but for a telehealth visit, it's like $30.92. So we're not giving doctors the impetus to have people do telehealth.
Wait, did you know? Let me add that to you. I recently went to the doctor. Did you know they charge per the time they talk to you? So if it's 20 to 29 minutes and then 30 to 39 minutes, I had no idea until I actually
read anesthesia.
Yeah, there's codes for that.
Yep.
I was mind blown.
Even beyond that, like I also live in New York, and I've been trying to help people get vaccine appointments who are eligible, but many of them are not nearly techie enough to be able to get these appointments. Like it's, but I would love to hear more about some of these like biohacking implants. And like Nina, depending what yours are, I don't, if they're private, I don't want to ask about them, but if you want to talk about them, I'm very curious about them.
I don't think I have the cool ones. I have the RFID, the NFC, and then I have one up here that I worked on with somebody because I wanted my EMR implanted in my arm because I travel a lot and I wanted to have a way that I could have all of my information with me. The problem was that when it went in, the pocket wasn't long enough, so it canted and it broke some of the electronics in it. So, but I also wanted to see how it would heal because I heal horribly. One of the cooler implants.
These are all pretty cool, but please tell us what the coolest is.
One of the cooler implants that I've seen is from Grindhouse Wetware. I'm sure Meredith knows them. I think it was here. It was in the back of their palm. It was massive. It was like the size of an iPhone that just it was either forearm or here. Either way, it just lit up. They just wanted proof of concept that something could go in there and it would show up and be great. And eventually they moved it over to doing, I think it was temperature, blood oxygen, and maybe heart rate too, I think. And it had a Bluetooth connection to the phone so you could monitor how well you were doing. And then that led to other implants.
I'm not gonna lie. I prefer my X computer interfaces, whatever part of the body to be non-invasive. I did go nuts on a smartwatch that can track continuous heart rate and atrial fibrillation, and take an ECG on my wrist because I have some kind of congenital tachycardia that doesn't really cause any problems. It does, but it does fire every once in a while. So it's nice to be able to track that.
Do you have a rec on favorite smartwatch then, or?
This is the Withings ECG watch.
Awesome.
It used to be part of Nokia and then spun out into their own company. They're based in France, but they're actually FDA approved and EU approved for monitoring AFib.
Awesome. Nina looks very excited about something. Did you want to add something?
I have one more, and I'm trying to Harbison. I don't remember his name. Harbison is his last name. He's colorblind. He was born colorblind, and he's got like an antenna coming out of his head that is implanted in his brain. And if you tell him to look at something, he sees it in the complete ultraviolet ray of color. It's amazing. And he's got a bust. He's Spanish. He's got a bust of himself in one of the museums in Spain. And if you put I'm in the kids' room right now. So if you took this and put it under his bust, it will stop him in the middle of the day to alert him that something is there, and it'll send the picture to him, and he'll look at it and he'll tell you what color he sees.
Wow. That's awesome. I
love that.
That's cool.
I know there's that cool. The looks on everyone's faces on the call as you said that was like, oh, what?
I mean, my dad just got the glasses. My dad's colorblind, but
I didn't realize there were glasses either. I'm not colorblind. If I am colorblind, I don't know I'm colorblind, I should say.
You're probably not. It tends to be the case in men more often.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. So we're finding that. Are you guys finding that people who implant themselves, is it more so for useful and practical, or do you think that a lot of people are, doing it for the fun of it? And do you see it becoming heavily, maybe regulated to be mandatory, or just, you can do it and you can collect your data for yourself and things like that?
Well, I mean, there's absolutely going to end up being regulation. I mean, Elon Musk wants to develop a transdermal brain computer interface, which honestly scares me to death. I would much rather go with EEGs and feedback through that. Like if your goal is to control the computer, like this ought to be possible. And that is something that I plan to be playing around with once I can make it to Houston and pick up the OpenBCI 32 node EEG kit that I had to order to my parents' house.
I have it. It's amazing.
Fantastic. I am looking forward to playing with it.
What is the OpenBCI?
How far?
kit?
Go ahead. What is the open? I forget the letters.
BCI kit?
Nina, do you have it handy? Like, can you?
No, I put my hands. I do this.
No. Okay, I was just saying, like, if you have it, like, you can tell them more about it.
It's brain connectivity interface, and it's like a little net that you can do the things with. You put it on and connects. I believe it's Wi-Fi. I don't remember right now, and it tells you this.
I mean, it's basically got sensors at each of the cap has sensors at each of the areas that you're supposed to put a sensor for an EEG, and it's soft and you can wear it around. And yeah, there's just there's a small device that reads all 32 channels.
Oh, that's cool. I've played with the Muse, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Just this little head thing, and it's super cool. Like it comes with like a little meditation app, and like you can see your different brain waves. And
I know the guy who wrote their SDK.
Oh, it's so cool. It's really fun to play with.
Gadi?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here and listening to you guys. It's kind of like being with the experts on a topic that's extremely cool, and listening to the experts talk to each other. And you might not understand everything, but you understand there is a higher level abstraction here, that they care. For example, the way you're engaged with the regulation around this and the tools around this and how it's important and imperative for the world, that's a higher level from my understanding. And I'm feeling excited and honored to be here. But I would like to ask to take a step back for a second. Let's assume I'm a complete noob, which I am, and I'm coming into the Biohacking Village, right? And I'm saying, what's biohacking and how can I be a part of this? What do you do? What's so cool about this? What
Nina?
would you guys say?
I'm going to give you like the 3-minute spiel that I give everyone. So,
Thank you. That was interesting, but I'm not sure you bought me on that. Just 3 minutes scares me. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Please. So the Biohacking Village has been around for 6 years or 7 years, I think. This is my 6th year running it. The first year it was 9 talks and 2 demos. And over the years, because of the hospital work that I've done, I've tried to build it out to be more inclusive of the entirety of the ecosystem. So if you walked into the village, it's 3 different rooms. So we have a medical device room where we set up a pseudo hospital and everything is interconnected, and the hacker community comes in and has a face-to-face one-on-one with the manufacturers, and the hackers can work off of on the devices and give them the vulnerabilities or whatever issues are going on. So there's real-time CVEs done, real-time disclosures, and that happens. And then we have the speaker lab. People come in, talk about emerging threats, talk about new technology, all the cool new stuff. Boom, I went blank. The things that have happened. And then we have the Catalyst Lab, and that came about because the government wouldn't fund me, and I have a problem with that. So what we do there is pre-seed companies come in, talk about what they're working on. Hopefully the manufacturers come in, venture capitalists, the government gives them, we're working on getting the government to do objective one-on-one, non-binding advice so they can get moving forward. And then either seed funding or venture capital funding from manufacturers, hopefully mentorship, hopefully getting picked up by the manufacturers. So all in all, it's bringing together the entirety of the ecosystem so that we can start ourselves reimagining and reinventing what healthcare looks like.
Does DARPA fund much investigative bio work, or is that mostly like NIH?
DARPA has a BTO office, so I think it's biotechnology office on their own.
I spend more of my time with their information office because Langsec, but yeah, I mean, I would imagine that they would probably be a lot easier to interest in things than NIH or FDA.
You know, the penny just dropped that I honestly don't know what biohacking is. When I met people doing biohacking, they were either hackers or biologists or whatever, doing cool stuff and showing that you can do stuff with your body and there are things you can do. It's kind of underground almost. And when I listen to you now, you're almost like trusted advisors working with the government, trying to change the future. And I'm like, awesome. But what happened to all this underground stuff? Like, I was wondering, when Karen asked about your implants, like, is it like asking about tattoos or is it more rude? Like, are people still about, let's hack our bodies, let's do cool shit, or it's all about, let's make the world better with medical stuff?
It's both. It's not mutually exclusive. It's not like it's not one or the other.
Why could it not be both? I mean,
it's both.
You were Najla. You were.
You sold out. You're enterprise now. You're all white hat.
Najla, you were
it's both.
About what the biohacking community was, how it changed as a result of the pandemic. And I think one thing that happened was it legit became more global and better sourced logistically. Tito Jankowski, who's been part of the synthetic bio side of DIY bio for a very long time. He's one of the open PCR guys. He and some other people, spun up a Slack and got regular meetings going. They were organizing shipments of masks from China. They were figuring out, rapid testing approaches, other kinds of medical device stuff. If memory serves, the ventilator that Italy used, that was based on a snorkeling mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Decathlon, like from the basically the Dick's Sporting Goods of Europe, like that came out of that space.
So now are we seeing like a exponential, like from garage to commercial now, right? Because science, we have garage science, and now we're seeing like the development of the vaccine, for instance. It's been under a year. That hasn't happened in, I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard that it has happened.
I think both small business and large business are starting to step in like wherever they can. Like Decathlon had to divert its entire inventory of snorkeling masks, in order for that ventilator thing to happen, but they were happy to do it. And the manufacturer, was happy to have their entire inventory bought up, but that's just one example.
So I wanted to ask a question. One of my favorite books is The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee, which is like basically a history or a biography of cancer through the ages. And like one of the things I was really struck by reading it was how recently we just had like no treatments for cancer. And so we really just like by modern standards, we're just experimenting on people like wildly. And we've moved so far away from it that it sounded like some dystopian future to me reading about 50 years in the past. And I get the sense with like the pandemic, we're moving sort of back in this direction. And I'm just curious, I personally haven't seen anything that's really made me think, oh, we're going too far, but I'm curious if you see anything like that, being a little bit closer to the bleeding edge of this.
Nina, go ahead. I know you wanted to say something.
I'm going to caveat this with the dog is snoring. So if you hear it, that's her. So I want to go back to the comment really quickly about everybody becoming a white hat because of how the Biohacking Village is going. I love that comment because anybody that actually has had a real conversation with me, I am confrontational and I love to counter people. I will fact check. I want to know where you got your ideas from. I want to know every single thing. Again, I want your whole failure tree when we have a conversation about it. We need in this industry the black hats, the gray hats, the white hats. We need everybody to be concerned about all the things that are going on here. So when it's the whole like, you know, we're all white hats now. To be a white hat, you still have to be a black hat. You still have to know what's going on both sides. And to be a black hat, you still have to know white hat stuff. One of my favorite comments from a certain agency doing certain medical things is, you know, we give out the manual and, you know, everybody's going to read the manual and that's enough. And I was like, you think I care about your manual? I'm going to read your manual and I'm going to toss that shit in. I cursed. I'm sorry. You can beat that later. You can toss that shit in your
With
in your
PG-13, I believe you can say shit 4 times. We just did it twice. So
you're right. It's the F word. You can only say once. So, because I'm going to
fuck that shit. Oops.
So I'm going to read your manual and now I know what you want me to know. And now I'm going to do all the other things that I want to do. And I've had that conversation with them. And it's that constant battle that I have had with government folks of, we're going to do what we want with whatever information you give us. And then we're going to expand on it anyway. So you can play nice with us and get what we need from each other and let's move forward together. Or you can let the other people doing the other things come in and help you do that for you.
And this is true. You know, this is true of information security in general. And, you know, biology is just another kind of information. It's very wet, squishy information.
Wet, squishy information. I'll add that to my list along with timey-wimey stuff, if you're Doctor Who fans.
Going back to something you were saying earlier, Gadi, about, you know, the administration. Nina was saying that the Obama administration was completely down, with Garage Bio, and that's absolutely true. But one of the things that led up to that was straight up the CIA, hired a research firm, and they actually contacted this. This was in about 2007, 2008. They contacted a lot of quote unquote leading figures at the time in the synthetic bio community, because they were there was apparently concern at fairly high levels that this could lead to terror threat. That was the question I got all the time. Like, oh, our terrorists.
Everybody ignored you until Homeland happened, right?
Well,
right.
The thing is, if somebody wanted to get into modifying bacteria directly, they would have a much better chance of actually learning what they need to learn by just going to a community college and taking some lab classes. That's
to be fair. I know that you write science fiction, and I never publish, but I write bad science fiction. But I'll say that in 2000, actually, speaking of CCC, I was at the CCC camp in 2007. You weren't there, I think. And I gave this talk presenting a science fiction future, taking current models for security, whether it's and trying to build on them for the biological hacking world, not so much biohacking, going all the way to how do we updates introduce new risks. Do we have centers? Do we send everybody there? Do we do it wirelessly? If we do that, how about locking down the body? Can the body still evolve? Can the body fix itself? I kept going up and up and up and up on that, asking what happens when somebody does something with Python and releases it to the world from their house. But that was science fiction, and it's not so much biohacking. One of the things that I want your opinion and the experts on, so I'll drag the conversation away for a minute if you're okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, I'll cry. Is not specifically medical devices. That's a broken machine that I've been harping on since 2002 or so, and people still don't do anything about it. And honestly, we are all in security. We all know that we're the Cassandras of the world. We see the future happening. We cry. Nobody cares. Everybody ignores us. And when the bodies start getting way up there in the casualty lists, then when people start to listen to us, and I think it might be too late when the first worm happens. But we also need to not be FUD based, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, doomsayers. We need to be security people who are good and enabling the business. It's so difficult. So I kind of limited myself to one thing nowadays. And I'm talking a lot to, this was before COVID. I left them alone completely since COVID started. But all these people who are doing infectious diseases research and are running around Africa and all around the world responding to incidents of Ebola, whatever it is. And the one question I had for them was, and it's truly amazing, even though there have been some breakdowns, to see how if somebody comes into a hospital, if you don't identify what it is, 24 hours later, I believe you go and report it to WHO, and so on and so forth. The entire system is incredible. This year I changed my mind a little bit on that, but it's incredible on paper. They have their incident response is built on different parameters than ours, and I like the comparison. But bringing it down,
Tan, who does this
Emerson is amazing. I love Emerson.
On the regular.
Just saw him yesterday on Clubhouse, but no, somewhere else, doesn't matter. But the thing is that for me, if tomorrow somebody died or other people started dying, right, scaring people again, the forensic examinations that are happening, and we have experts here, so they can correct me, would not even consider looking at, for example, the pacemaker. There is not even okay, Nina, go, Nina, go.
Yes,
go, you're the expert.
Correct. Yes, go ahead. Correct. Everything is falling under one thing right now, and we're not getting the actual cause and manners of death for all of the casualties.
I mean, would anybody not to mention even think about doing the forensic examination for devices?
But we've got the Internet of Things that can stop your heart.
Right.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not even that even if, for example, forensic examiner said, I find no reason why this person died and had a heart attack, they for some reason would even think about the pacemaker, they would have no tools or training to be able to approach that and report that in any way to WHO. It's just completely irrelevant for them.
So I have so many issues with everything you just said. Yes. So boom. Yeah.
That's what I limit myself today in this field. That's what I'm saying. But go, Nina, go.
So there's a doctor, his name is Christian Nemeth. He runs the Cyber Summit, something like that. CyberMed Summit. He runs the CyberMed Summit. And all he does is these in real time. Oh my God, I have so many thoughts. Okay. He runs this in real time action of bringing in a medical doctor, and there's a real patient, and then it turns into a dummy, and the patient's he's getting pinged by the pacemaker, and they don't know why, and the doctor does not know what's going on. The doctor's walking in completely blind, and the doctor does well, maybe we just need to pad. Oh, it didn't work. We don't know what's going on, and the patient flatlines. They come back up. Things happen. Then they also do the insulin pump to figure out what's going on. So the bolus went in, the entirety of the insulin went in, or it didn't. And Christian brings them out and says, so what did you think? What happened? And they're like, I was so confused. I didn't know what happened, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every time I go through somebody's incident response for anything, I'm like, well, where's your medical device response? Because maybe this person just didn't die of a heart attack. It was responding to the pacemaker or something else. So where's the actual pacemaker? And no, 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, we sent it back to get re-imaged and do whatever. And I'm like, great, you needed to do something with that. We're not.
But they all work by checklists. And as long as the industry doesn't care about this and doesn't think about this. I mean, I've met some people at the World Economic Forum who say, no, we are X company and we absolutely care about cybersecurity about our devices. Right. But with that said, I'm talking to developers. That's why I actually go and check. And the developers don't even consider currently cybersecurity. And I don't blame these companies at all. But then I'm saying one of my things to do, because Cassandra effect and trying to convince people to invest in something where they don't see the need to yet, and it would stop their business, is to kind of convince them, look at what happened to all the previous technological waves. And all these parameters of the vulnerability is getting discovered, criminals start to use it, there is, and so on and so forth until a warm up. And the thing is, when I look at this, last time I checked statistics, I think there were 3 million or 4 million pacemakers in the US. I think there are 800,000 new ones every year, and that's in the US alone, not considering all other medical devices. When in the same conference I met Meredith, there were guys from I think a university in Seattle. They showed 8,000 vulnerabilities in a pacemaker back then. Mm-hmm. So that was just after my presentation. I wish it was before so I could have edited it to my presentation. But the thing is now, what happens tomorrow, and I hate this, I hate that I'm reduced to being the security professional I was when I was 20, and I can't discuss in better terms that are business-oriented and strategic-oriented. But what happens when there is a worm, and not only can we not tell it's coming from pacemakers, and not only do we have no tools to deal with that, and not only do we have no capability to do incident response, right? The effect is devastating. And I care right now more about terrorism, about Iran, about cybersecurity finally, which is great, right? How do we make people care? And I have no answer.
I think you got it in one when you said checklists. Hospitals run on checklists, and it somehow hospital protocols need to preserve evidence to heart failures with pacemakers.
They need to preserve a lot of things, and that comes along with documentation too. Their policies and standards and procedures, everything that you can think of needs to be updated, and they need to have deviations. Those tabletop exercises where it says, okay, if XYZ may happen, we need to divert to here. If this happens, we need to divert there. It's a lot of, I think it's a lot of, top down.
I'm really sorry for cutting you off for a second,
execs.
Najla. I really am sorry for cutting you off. I got to say that the viewers don't only see the person who is speaking, and I constantly look to Nina because she's so excited. She's jumping up and down in her chair. It's something we get to see and enjoy, and nobody else can see. So I just wanted to cut you off for a second just to appreciate Nina for being so excited about this and knowing so much. Please go on.
This is her thing. This is her thing. I love it. But like I'm saying, I think that documentation and really going back and seeing what you have on hand and adapting. You're not going to get everything, but if you start paying attention and getting, being aware of, incidences and what's happening and updating accordingly, you can put yourself in a better position. It's no longer, if it's going to happen. It's really a matter of when. And a lot of times, a lot of things are happening a lot faster than people can acknowledge. And I think if, we all start to talk about it and really enforce it, I think we can start to change. I don't know how long it'll take, but I think that that's something that we can start doing. Go ahead, Nina.
I'm going to counter you. So working in the hospitals, it's a conglomerate of every different thing, every medical device that is completely different and completely differently programmed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when we leave everything up to the hospital itself, that is a lot of responsibility for one entity that is an ecosystem of a lot to do. So I think it requires the manufacturer to also have an impetus of something happened, you need to send it back to us. And we also need to check logs, and we also need to forensically check this thing.
But we also don't check BIOSes, and we do have access to BIOSes. So I just don't know when that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's really communication. It's like the medical device manufacturers have to communicate with the hospital have to communicate with the patients. It has to do with open communication.
They have to care first, though, don't they?
They do have to care. They have to change everything. Everything, it has to be built into the contract. Like, just because you hire the medical device to send you this, you need to check with them to make sure that what you've hired them for or got.
Tell us how you really feel about that, Najla.
I'm telling you right now, just because you buy something, double check it if you can. Like, yes, you have these contracts and things, but you have to check it. I think that this is a good conversation. So I'm going to end it here and ask the very last question. So what is next? And you can take that wherever you want to take it, but leave it to two things that you can tell me that you think that's next for the biohacking community, village, industry. What are two things that you see next? Nina,
since I'm writing because I take notes, I think there's going to be more.
I really dislike organized people. They make me look bad.
You'll be okay, Gadi.
I really, and I want more hackers in the government. I want more hackers in the manufacturers, because we have that insight, we have that curiosity. We are not the normal thinkers of anything. So we can bring that insight to them and do the things. I think a lot of what, so my second thing is the people that were manufacturing things that maybe didn't get funding are going to push the boundaries of all things medical and medicine and health and create their own way to make healthcare better and push their way into it.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I was going to say, my short-term, thing I hope to see happening is, there's more collaboration between individuals, industry, and government. And then, my longer-term moonshot, I research this once a year, is I want chip-scale atomic force magnetometers, because that way we can do magnetoencephalography that's like mobile and doesn't require enormous cryo magnets and stuff. That's going to really change brain-computer interfaces, in my opinion, because it's basically the resolution of an fMRI with the speed of an EEG.
That's fast and cool. But I just want to say I am thankful that you all are spending your Saturday watching and sharing what you know here about biohacking. I think we're making progress. And I think that these conversations, good, bad, or indifferent, are very good, because there's no one way to do anything. The more we open the communication between different professionals in the industry, the better we'll be. And I think, slowly but surely it's happening. And I hope that, in a year or two, we'll be having different conversations and things have been put into place for that.
I'm with you 100%.
I wanna say I feel like I'm the old guy now. Like, get off my lawn, because I've been there so many times, and I would say 2 years from now, when it was 20 and nobody cares anymore, or whatever. But I hope you're right, because that is, again, something I care about deeply. So I appreciate all the insight. Honestly, this has been really fun. We have a lot of different shows with people who are experts and people who are passionate, but the excellence that I got from you, Najla, Nina, and Meredith, I like for many, many years now. But I like two new people now, which is also good. One thing I want to say before we kind of summarize this and move on is, as security people, and I brought us there, you guys were all optimistic and strategic. We scare people. And when it comes down to it, the sun will come up tomorrow if there is a catastrophic event. And we'll get together and we'll solve our problems and we'll move on. And that's something we need to remember. And we are becoming more professional as security professionals in general, in talking to the business and in making our case and being a part of the general, the world around us, as opposed to being stuck in up our own asses and not being able to see what's going on. So I really appreciate that. So Najla, just your moderation, your feedback, you're bringing this up to the strategy level. I really appreciate that. Nina, you're awesome. I just love you. You're amazing. And Karen and I are arguing whether one of us should try and hire you and who should it be, and if you'll even want to come work with us, because you're so awesome, you would not even look at us, right? And Meredith, as always.
I run clinics in New York City, I'm just saying.
Karen is a CTO of a company that does some of this stuff now. And Meredith, it's just, you're amazing, but I don't care about any of that because I'm just excited to see you again. But I will ask Karen.
Because she's, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Whenever some of my friends get together, the first thing they get to do, and I don't know why, is put me down and laugh at me. I don't know what it's about me, but they enjoy it so much. But Carl, I can see you nodding over there. I don't like you anymore. But Karen, you're new to this. You're a technologist and you're a business person, although I don't like that. You're a startup person. And you listened to us for the past hour. Listen to them for the past hour. I just interrupted sometimes. And I wonder what comes to mind. Are you scared? Are you excited? Do you want to know about Nina's implants? Like what do you want? Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't know if I don't know if I would characterize myself as new to this. I literally kind of work in this field. But I mean, what scared me was when Nina said 13 EMRs. That's my nightmare. I work on. I am actually excited about the role of software in this field and in some of this. And it's a mess right now for a lot of reasons that there's no time to go into. But how do you get that log whenever something happens? I think really putting the right amount of content in front of the right person at the right time through software systems. If you have to document it, it's like, hey, download this, write this number. There's actually a lot of power there. And so I'm actually just passionate about the role of software in some of this, and excited about kind of like just the fact that other people are thinking about this. What happens with your heart implant? And I hear you. About hearing more about all the cool shit I could implant into my body, like
because tattoos are just not enough anymore. No, but I'll say that I was talking to Mike Fiedler, a mutual friend of ours, the other day. I think you were about to hire him, and then you met him again on my Facebook page, and I think it was like 10 years ago. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's how we met. Yeah. Okay. So
he was great to work with.
He's awesome. It's really cool. So I was talking to him a little bit about philosophy of technology out of nowhere. Don't ask me why. And a lot of my spiel is kind of about, I see Carl writing down, shut up, we need to wrap up. But before he even shows me the sign. But a lot of what I look at is abstraction layers and how we add on abstraction layers on top of abstraction layers. And I think that is really cool. Wrap it up, Gadi. I see that. That is really cool because these abstraction layers allow us to do more and give access to technology to more people, but at the same time, they leave a basis that's very shaky. And trying to figure out how to unwind all of these abstraction layers to understand a problem happened. How do we figure out what that problem is? How do we figure out how to even approach it? On the one hand, we have progress, but on the other hand, we leave a lot of vulnerable infrastructure. And my spiel on that is usually Y2K. And how when we actually solve the problem, people will tell us, well, nothing happened. So what did you do? Why did we pay you, right? So just some finishing thoughts. But on that note, thank you all. We are gonna be on we're gonna do this again on April 10th with a show on Mexicanics. I believe I'm pronouncing it right, with David Balls, John Picaccio, Hector Gonzalez, Gabriela, Damian Miraveta, and Libla Brenda, with the help of Sarah Felix, working together with our own Alan on creating a show about art and Latin America and a lot of really cool shit in between. So that was our first shit. Oh, ouch. I just need a fifth one. No longer PG-13. So that's going to be cool. Please, we are moving from a Zoom-based event to more streaming on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. So follow us to know when this is going on. And just thank you. We're going to stay here with our panelists for a few minutes, but we'll say goodbye to you. You've been an awesome audience, even though I can't see you. So I'm guessing, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you all suck. But I love you anyway. See you next time. Bye-bye.
The recording has stopped.